Hello and welcome to another episode of the Construction Corner podcast. I'm Dylan. I'm your host, joined by my blue collar badass, Matt. How are you doing, man?
Doing great, Dylan. It has been we tried to stop talking about the weather, but I can't because it's so nuts here. But it has been absolutely insane. Like I was saying before we got on, it was freezing rain Saturday, warm and sunny Sunday, and then today during my 75 hard walk, it was an absolute blizzard out of nowhere. And now it's so sunny, I'm getting a tan sitting here in the studio. So I can't explain what's going on here in Michigan. It's like all hell broke loose again.
Yeah, well, and I'm in Louisville, Kentucky this week. So that's why I'm, in a beautiful hotel room doing this. And wife kind of hates me right now because I left yesterday. And basically, as soon as I got on the plane, it started snowing at our house. So luckily, it's all melted, and most of the 7 feet we've gotten this season is melted as well. So it's one of those things when you travel. Like as soon as I step on a plane these days, like it snows, and my wife she's like, "You're lucky that it melted." I'm like, oh,
That's how it goes, man.
It is how it goes. Well, guys, enough of the chit chat. Let's get down to business. We have a great guest for you guys today, Joseph Villarreal. He's a civil contractor serving the Central Texas region. But before starting Villarreal Civil Group, he had a 10-year career with a large GC in San Antonio, and he's still based in and around the San Antonio region, and always had a desire and interest in heavy equipment and to compete in business. So with that, Joseph, who doesn't like big earth moving equipment? Like, let's start there, and welcome to the show.
Well, thank you guys for having me. And I think it's safe to say that we're all heavy equipment nerds at heart.
And my wife is a geologist, so whenever I get to go to the mine, they have some pretty big haul trucks. They have a D10 dozer that they get to move dirt around, and you don't see those puppies too often,
Right. That's awesome.
I was looking through your LinkedIn a little bit ago, Joseph, and I don't know what the hell it was, but you were unloading this truck, this 6-wheeled friggin' Goliath. It looked absolutely enormous. What the hell was that thing, man?
That was a Cat off-road truck we were using on a landfill project. Biggest truck we've had on a job. It was a blast to drive. Even more fun trying to keep it out of the mud, but it was a good time. Great truck to have, and hopefully we can get some more soon.
And I'm a GC. We have big equipment on a lot of our jobs, and maybe it was the angle, who knows, but whatever that thing was, it looked just enormous in the picture. So I had to ask.
Yeah, whenever you get equipment that has its own steps to get up into it, know that, when built-in steps come included, that it's a big piece of equipment.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So outside of, loving big Caterpillar stuff, what made you get into kind of the civil contracting world and decide to go from a GC or being on that side of the fence into, running your own company and being a civil contractor?
So it kind of goes back to, like my internship process. I went to UTSA in San Antonio, construction management, interned with a company, right out of school, and just kind of stayed throughout my entire early career with them, and had a great experience, learned so much about starting a job, finishing a job, all the details, the nuts and bolts of building these commercial buildings in a fast-paced environment like Central Texas is. But I was always the guy that I'd be doing punch lists on the third floor, or doing an above ceiling walk, and I'd look down and there'd be a blade crew finishing a parking lot, or the low boys coming in and dropping off a D8 or something on a job. And I was always, if I had to stay late, for a tile guy, I'd be in somebody's dozer, grooming a stockpile or doing something like that on the job that I probably wasn't supposed to be. But I've always had an interest in it, and there's so many really good site contractors in San Antonio, Austin region that it's hard to say, hey, I'm just going to go try to compete and with all these really good subs. But it was like, we're going to try to start something that really services what the general contractor needs. And so that's been the goal from day one. I left a steady and a really good career with a general contractor, and bought a skid steer and went land clearing and had a blast doing it. And that just kind of it I did that for about a year, and it led us back into wanting to be kind of not so much on the GC side, but how do we help these guys? Like, there's always a little bit of sidewalk grading at the end. There's always a bust with landscape and things like that on these jobs that would come up, and it's like, well, who's going to do that? And so we really tried to approach subcontracting with with what a general contractor needs and wants on their job to get it finished.
That's an interesting way to go about it. And you're right. You get those kind of odds and ends, if you will, at the end that, our earth worker is done and gone. And a lot of times we already paid them their retention at that point too. But we always sit there kind of scratching our heads like, well, all right, I guess we can bring our own skid steer and a shovel and a rake and finish this up. But there's never really anyone on the sub side to handle that for us. So is that what you are specializing in, is kind of that end of the road, end of the project cycle kind of miscellaneous, or are you taking it on full scale?
We had some early projects where it was like, hey, come in and help us finish these projects out. But now I'd say we're a full turnkey commercial site contractor. But the way we approach the project is, it's not, hey, let's come in, get your building pad done and leave, and then fight the entire job to come back. It's, let's get this entire thing cut, let's get the pads done, and let's prepare for 6 months from now when it is time to come back and do some grading, that a lot of this stuff's done and we're not having to bring back tons of equipment. And really thinking through the entire site, not just like the traditional, hey, let's get your pads done in a couple weeks and move on to the next one.
It's a great way to look at it, because it always happens that way, right? Where the earthworker will get the pad done and then he splits. And then, we're putting in underground plumbing and we're putting in underground electrical and all the stuff that goes in. And now the pad's gone to shit. And, they don't want to come back, and rightfully so. I mean, if you guys demobilize and move all your stuff out, there's fees involved in that, obviously, and moving that heavy iron. But to have somebody on my team like that, it's huge for us. And we have a couple guys now that we work with that do just that, and they understand the game a little bit more from the GC side. But I got to imagine, having the background in general contracting, that you get it probably better than almost anybody.
It's been I would say it's an advantage, because we look at it from a different approach. I mean, a lot of other contractors in town, they're large scale, high production, and they're moving 100 miles an hour. We're smaller, we're smaller, we're value driven. We don't have all of our guys that we've brought on to our team. A lot of them are ex general contractor employees or just haven't, this is their first construction job. And so we're relying on technology to meet production with our equipment, but we're also looking at everything almost from a superintendent standpoint on the job. And so it's been an advantage, because we're able to get through jobs, accurately and quickly, but we're not leaving behind, you know, tons of additional work that's going to have to be done at the end of the job. And so it's just it's kind of a different approach to it. And it's a lot of value driven, but it's been great. It's been great. We've had a lot of really good relationships with new customers because we approach the projects in that way.
It's a great way to do it. I mean, it's atypical, right? You know, you said it, but it's atypical for the earthwork contractor to have that mentality. We see that a lot with our carpenters. You know, a lot of our carpenters were superintendents in previous lives, so they kind of seem to get that naturally and have that kind of full project mindset. But to have you guys with that is great, because you're the first ones there, right? And you're setting up that project for success or not down the road. And if you have that mindset of full project scope mentality, it can only help things. So I certainly can appreciate what you're doing.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, maybe going back a little bit is when you were, you know, superintendent over the 10 years that you were there while and working with a GC, is what were maybe some of the things that you saw in the general contracting world that you wish would have happened, that would have made your life easier? And this, you know, maybe it was in the dirt world, but maybe it was some of the other trades. What were some of the things that you saw that you wish, you know, maybe could have been done better, or really just plagued you on projects?
I think the biggest thing from a superintendent standpoint is you want subs on the job that are engaged in the job. You want to be able to, if as a superintendent or project manager, you want to be able to walk up to your subs foreman and know that he is engaged in your project. Okay. If and really you want to be able to walk up to anybody on the job and for them to know, hey, what's going on? Where are we at on grade? Where are we at on this, on that? And you really, and most of the time, unfortunately, with our subs, is everybody is so busy. They're on 50 different projects, and you have subs that show up to the job and they say, hey, Matt, what do you want me to do today? I'm here. And so that used to just drive me crazy in the GC world, is like you have subs, you have great subs, and it's like, okay, but we're directing them on you know what tasks to do all day long, rather than, hey, let's show up, let's get a plan together, and let's execute on this plan. And you want buy-in and engagement from the entire subcontracting team on that job. And so, like, with my guys and with some of the other site subs that are contractors in town that we're doing this with, is like, hey, let's get everybody on the same page. Okay, if you're a laborer and are running a roller and a superintendent walks up to you and says, hey, what are you guys doing? It's like, hey, we're 2/10 off from finishing this pad. Or, you know, everybody on the job needs to know what's going on the job. And so in a perfect contracting construction world, then is, if I was back on the GC side, that's what I would want. And Matt, I'm sure you're the same, you feel the same way.
150%, man. It's that team-based mentality. We talk about it here a ton. We approach it that way in our company, and we try to do that because you said it, and I was laughing. You know, like the worst thing in the world is, and it's not so much with me anymore, but now my guys, if they show up and, you know, the electrician's laborer is looking for them to try and figure out what the hell they're supposed to be doing on a given Wednesday, it's like, come on, man, what, your efficiency is out the window at that point. So I'm with you on all that. Joseph, let's kind of dig into the meat and potatoes here, because I got to ask, you know, it's not necessarily a normal path going from the general contractor to a subcontractor, and that's a good thing. But there are very definite differences in between the two, between the GC and the sub, and how they operate and relationships. So how has that been for you to kind of navigate, kind of crossing over that bridge, if you will, into the subcontractor realm from the GC side?
It's not at all what I expected. I thought that we would be able to go into this and just automatically have it under control. You know, coming into this side, it's difficult because especially in San Antonio and South Texas market, Central Texas market, there's so many good subs. There's so many good site work subs. Um, Big family companies, multi-generational. I'm not a dirt guy. I love heavy equipment. I love civil. I love building a team. Um, you know, going back all through college and high school, all I wanted to do was be a used car salesman because that's what my family did. My dad's a multi-generational car dealer, very successful car dealer, and I thought that was going to be my path. And so coming into construction in general, it's I don't have the same. Our company isn't set up the same as some of our competitors. I mean, again, we have very good site contractors in South Texas, and so it's very hard to compete with them. But mostly being a what's so different about coming to this is that we're I'm so used to being involved in the from the very beginning, or you're involved with working with an owner or an AE team, and then now switching to, oh, we're working directly for a GC, dealing with their superintendents when some of us used to be superintendents. It's so different. It's so different, but it's a blast though.
So, I mean, in that, like, I can see how, because again, coming from the engineering side, right, we always led projects. We were always the one leading the design, the intent, we lead everything, right? Choosing fixtures, choosing everything about that project, being on the AE team. So, I mean, how do you kind of lead while you're being led at the same time, right? I think that's the ultimate question. And for a lot of the subcontractors, right, it's leading your own team, but at the same time you're being led by the GC or the design team or working with the civil engineer. Kind of how is that dynamic, or how have you found best to navigate it? Might be the better question there, in kind of that relationship where you got to lead your team, but you're also being led, you know, by the GC, the engineers, the owner, you know. And for like the engineering team, we were just really led by the owner and our own, like, the code and
Right.
kind of general practices. But where you have, you know, here's a set of drawings and let's go. How have you found best to kind of navigate in that dynamic?
I think it's definitely an alignment. It's an alignment issue. If you, and we're lucky that we're the first ones on site, and so it really comes to, you know, the GC they have a plan going into it for the most part, and then we have a plan of how we, you know, think it's going to be most efficient or fastest way for us to get through the work itself. And 99% of the time our plans align, if you really think about it. I mean, so if we show up on Matt's job, Matt already has a plan. He has a flow for the job. Hey, we're going to build it this way. We're going to work out of this corner. However, 99% of the time, our plan's going to align with that too. And if it doesn't, but it's 80% and the same, then we obviously we're going to go as directed with the GC. And so the biggest thing is, especially with our team, is, hey guys, look, we are working for this contractor. They want us out of here as bad as we want to get through this, because they want the next guy to start. So we need to follow their plan and just hit production and hit you know, milestones to get through the work. But it really it's communication and alignment, and really just setting the ego, leaving it in the truck, and going to approach with that project team and say, hey guys, look, you know, we're on your team, we're here to help, and let's win, let's get this done.
And it fits everybody on the site that way better, right? Because everybody wants to be in and out as quickly and efficiently as they possibly can from start to finish. because we all make more money, right? If at the end of the day, we all make a lot more money if we're in and out of there and we can wrap things up, get it done correctly, right? But get it done and get the hell out and move on to the next one. And, to have that kind of symbiotic relationship always functioning in the foreground on a job site is great because, my guys in the field, my superintendents are experts at what they do, right? But they're not earth workers. And so we're going to rely very heavily on guys like you to come in on day one or preferably like a few days before day one and like work out this plan and say, if my superintendent wants to start in the northeast corner and you're like, yeah, we could do that. But if we start in the southwest corner, we have this, and this as a benefit. We're all going to listen and everybody's going to be better for it. And then the project just starts off in such a better and more organized fashion than if, we have the superintendent who's out there with his bullhorn barking orders and won't listen to anybody or the earth worker who's like, F you guys. I've been pushing dirt for 30 years. I'm not going to hear this compromise thing. You got to meet in the middle.
Exactly. And that, in the past 10 years, you can see the industry changing from that.
Yeah.
It's like, guys, we're all in this together. Let's get it done. And, it's almost like the big argument over layout, on a job. And it's like, look, we're all going to use this point here. Let's go. And so, but that's definitely the biggest thing is like, hey, you guys have a plan. We have a plan. The concrete guy has a plan. And 80-90% they're always pretty much the same. It's just setting that ego aside and coordinating and working together on these things.
Yeah. So let me ask you, what coming from a GC, what can we do better for you guys as subs? And then I'm going to flip it too, and now that you've seen both sides, what can you as subs do better for us? How do we make it a better place to be?
From a GC side, I'm going to say they're both the same. It's communication from a GC side and from the sub. The sub it's communication and engagement 100%. Like we have to be engaged in your project from every single person on the job. Like that's 100% a subcontractor black eye is we're going to run 100 miles an hour. We're going to take on way too much work, and then we're gonna send one guy out there to show face on a project. That's the subcontractor issue. But the GC side, the biggest thing I see now coming from that, and even back, I'll look at situations that I've been in now as a sub, and I'm like, oh, I didn't handle this right as a GC either. And so it's definitely the communication. I mean, 99% of the time, the subs will come to the GC. Hey, where do we start? What benchmark are we using? When's the concrete guy coming? When's the utility guy coming? Who's hauling off the spoil? It's just being able to communicate with the contractor and having an open line and just engagement all around and a plan. And so I really think if subs work towards that and having 100% team engagement, GCs worked on planning and communicating with their subs on the expectation and the intent, then I really think we could see a lot of quicker and more progress on these complex projects.
For sure, man. And I see it. I've seen it on our sites where at the ownership level, communication might be great, right? Like if I set up a project myself, which doesn't happen very frequently anymore, but I might have this beautiful schedule worked out in my head or even on paper, and it'll go to the owner of the earthwork company or the owner of the electrician. But it may not filter its way down to the guys who are actually on the field. So we've started really pushing to try and have, foreman meetings at the very least on a weekly basis where all the people who are actually doing the work, not the assholes who stay in the office, but the people who are actually on site get together at least once a week and hash everything out so that everybody knows from, top to bottom, side to side in the project. They all know where they're supposed to be and when. And it has made a definite difference on our job sites, just from an efficiency standpoint, from keeping guys from grumbling and getting pissed off. Because the worst thing ever is if you show up one day to grade my south parking lot, and I've got the electrician camped out there setting up light pole bases, and you're like, well, what the hell do you want me to do now? I just rolled all my equipment. So I 100% agree with you. If anything we can do to foster that teamwork communication is so helpful on a job site.
100%. It's the communication. It's the plan. The plans. It's just so critical. It's so critical. And then we have to do a better job too on our end. Is like, we have to train. We have to have. We've got to have the engagement and have guys that are engaged. And it's been tricky even with us with being small and just with two small crews, getting buy-in and getting engagement from the guys that are actually doing the work. Because I mean, at the end of the day, somebody has to do the work.
Yep.
So.
Well, and I want to cycle back a little bit to, you mentioned in thinking holistically on the project, right? To making sure that all those I's are dotted, T's are crossed, if you will, on the project, right? Like the final touches to make sure that everything is as it should be, and to think about that from a GC perspective. Now, I guess my question is, in going into those projects, do you convey that to the GC up front that like, hey man, we're gonna pull all of our stuff out, right? We've done all of our initial grading, everything is done. We're gonna come back in 6 months, let's say, and we'll be here with small piece of equipment to finalize it. Like, how does that conversation happen with you guys, to kind of finish out a project?
It's communicated that, they're all kind of the same, honestly, Dylan. It's kind of like what Matt was saying. They show up, we do the initial earthwork to start the building, because obviously buildings are critical path. We look at landscape, we look at utility areas, we look at the whole site to see what all can be touched while we're here in that kind of first big mobilization. And then there's always stuff that comes up too, like, hey, there's a right of way that's available to be worked in, or an entrance, or hey, I need, or construction entrance needs to be moved, and we understand those things. And so like when a GC calls us, 3 weeks after we mobilize and they need a skid steer crew there, like, we understand, because we've been there. I've made that phone call 100 times, and it's like, hey, we really need this sidewalk, graded for something from the owner or whatever. And I think just being flexible with that as a sub has really helped, because the contractors and our customers, they remember that. If you blow them off for, oh, we're not going to come fix the sidewalk for you and we'll see you in 6 months, that they can remember that, going forward. And so it's just trying to build a long lasting relationship with our customers. And obviously, like, we can't give away everything. We can't just stay on site with the electricians for the entire job, but we do our best to accommodate and really be flexible when things like that pop up, because it happens to all of us, for sure.
And that's the key, man. It's so much more than building buildings. It's building relationships, right? Because this isn't going to be the last project we're going to work on, and hopefully we're going to work on it, theoretically together on the next one and the next one and the next one. And if right, wrong, or indifferent, if I call you because I need the sidewalk graded and you blow me off, I'm going to get it done, right? I can't stop. I can't just halt production. Right. So either I'm going to rent a machine and do it myself, or one of my guys, or we're going to find someone who can do it. And then it just gets ugly, and it certainly doesn't breed any goodwill. That's for sure. So, but it goes both ways, right? We got to make sure that guys are out of your way, and that we're not, mowing down all your stakes and your waypoints every time you leave the job site. So it definitely goes both ways.
I heard a saying, partnership over price, a couple months ago. I saw it on LinkedIn, and I love that. I've got it written in my office. And I mean, we've paid more in fuel because we have a great relationship with our fuel supplier. We pay more for our equipment over other brands because they've taken such good care. It's about the relationship. And the GCs that just take low bid, low bid, low bid on everything. I mean, there always ends up being problems, or some scope issue. And it just goes back to that. I'm 100% bought in on the partnership concept. 100%. I mean, it may not be the right way, but I'm always going to go back to that.
No,
way.
I would jump in and say it is the right way, man. It is 100% the right way. Because that's how this all works, right? We're all in the same damn team. And the low bid, the hard bid nonsense of a decade ago is what has given the industry, frankly, a bad name in general. Because that fosters the nonsense relation, or the bullshit animosity and lack of relationships, right? And we were just talking earlier with Scott, the guys that come out and want to make their whole profit in change orders. Those days are gone. That is not how the industry keeps moving and keeps growing. It isn't. Right. Financing is so much different. Projects are so much different, and people have just advanced past that point. And we got to keep thumping that drum that it is partnership over price, right? You got to be fair, but everybody's got to be fair. The GCs, the subs, the owners, everybody's got to make a living. We're not out here doing it just because we love the industry, right? We all love the industry in some respect, but we all got to make money. That's why we're here. And if everybody just starts being fair and realizes that we're all at the same table, it's not this dictatorship, led by the architect or by the GC or by the owner. It's a big ass table, and we're all sitting at it. That's how we keep moving this industry forward, in my mind, anyways.
I agree 100%. I think, if we could get away from that and, have subs that are best value, go to a best value system and really find engagement in the jobs. I mean, I think it'd be all around savings for everybody, especially the owners, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that end up with the product.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had this conversation with somebody to the whole kind of stigma of the industry, right? That they think that they're getting taken advantage of or what have you, right? That it's not fair. And I'm like, but is it? Like, really? Like, I've never been on a project that somebody's really screwed somebody else, in it, right? On price, on, now there might have been some issues, right? Somebody didn't perform. I've seen that. But as far as like them taking advantage of the contractors, like way inflating their price, or like somebody's really taking advantage of somebody, I've never seen it happen on any project that I've been a part of. Like, I've really never seen it. I've had contractors not perform and we kick them off, but like, I've never seen anybody like just screw somebody out of, vindictive or being mean or whatever, or greed, whatever you want to say of it. And I think like the stigma in the industry has been such that like, somebody's taking advantage of it. And it's just, I've never seen it. It's, everybody's given a fair price. They probably don't even charge enough for what they're doing. And, like, again, I get that I'm a young guy in this, but I grew up, rural communities, and a handshake meant a lot, right? Your word meant a lot. And on job sites, that is still a lot the case, right? You say something, to somebody, or you kind of horse trade through a project, that still goes on a lot. And I think that for all the young guys out there, you got to like understand how that works, right? That you do what you say, that you're willing to trade, you're willing to be fair on a project, and that through this process, you're going to build a partnership. Because, as an engineer, that's probably not the last time I'm going to work with that contractor. Same with you guys, right? As a sub, that's probably not the last time you're going to work with any of the other subs on that job, let alone the GC, hopefully on many more projects to come. And I think we often forget about that. We think about it in terms of this job right now, I'm going to get my way, with severe consequences down the road for really just treating people badly. And so, for sure, I really haven't seen people try to take advantage on projects. So I think that stigma needs to go away, like the dirty contractor trying to like screw people. But also, like, it's to remember that partnerships, doing the right thing, all of that will always pay. And it might not pay significantly on the job that you're on, but long term, right? And you guys, we've all been in the industry long enough to where long term it comes back in some way, shape, or form, always.
Yeah,
100%.
I would jump in though, and I have seen that shit. And frankly, there's competitors of mine in my same damn town that still do that shit, where the GC will go in, they'll win a job by being artificially low to swindle over the owner, and then they literally beat the shit out of every subcontractor that they can convince to come in and work with them. And you know what? It makes my job a hell of a lot easier, because when those subs come to work for me, they're like, holy shit, there is a different, it's like showing them the light, right? Yeah. And those guys, they're working themselves out of the industry. And I say, keep doing it, buddy. You keep rolling, because
and maybe that's more my point, right? And again, being the architect engineer, like, we just didn't see it. We didn't see that side. I never saw that side of the table. And not to say that it doesn't exist. It's just on all the jobs that I've been a part of, I really didn't see that come through. Again, were some people just bad at their job? Yes. 100. There were some people that were bad, but like, I think out of maliciousness, I really never saw it. But again, I wasn't in those rooms having those conversations.
Sure.
Right.
And I mean, Joseph, what's your experience, man?
It's like what you said, Dylan. It's performance. I mean, I have never in all the jobs I've been on this GC and the sub side, when a sub comes in and is engaged and performs and executes their scope of work and sets it up for the next guy, it's very, very, very rare that there's been issues. It's the lack of engagement. It's the not having the right plan, not having plan. I mean, I remember the days of, someone would get into a job and they're not even working off the right set of plans, or vice versa. I'm sure you've seen that too, or hey, it's just it goes back to performance. I think if subs, if we could have we want to try to be high performance, high accuracy subs, subcontractors and tradesmen, and you see it. It's how do we spread that to the entire community? Is high engagement, and high performance contracting, really.
Well,
that's perfectly said.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Joseph, you're welcome on my job site any day, man.
Hey, we travel. That's a run though to Michigan.
Hey,
see if the board want to go up there.
I do have a question though, kind of about that, just out of my own curiosity. Geographically speaking, because of our climate, my earthworker specialty contractors, my buddies who own earthworking companies, have a very hard time with finding qualified operators and keeping them, because it's just fact of the nature of the beast, rather, where those guys can't work 12 months of the year because it's disgusting outside and it's frozen tundra. So they shut down. They have to do temporary layoffs. But down in your neck of the woods, at least on a normal basis, it doesn't freeze over quite as much. So are you seeing labor issues or problems finding operators, either for yourself or for the earthwork community in general?
This is a really good question. The site work community in our area is there's a lot of companies. There's a lot of big companies, and everybody's fighting over the same group of operators. We have very, very skilled, highly accurate operators in this town, and everybody is fighting over the same group. And me being a new contractor, I'm not going to be able to get any of those guys. I mean, there's blademen making six figures on every corner of the street. I mean, it's very, very competitive. These guys are highly skilled, very, very well paid operators. It's an incredible career. And that's a whole nother podcast topic, is how do we spread that to the youth.
Yeah.
But for me, what I've done is it's literally been training from day one. We'll bring a kid in. I'm the oldest person in our company of 8. Most of our guys are new to the construction industry, and we developed a training program amongst ourselves that we can get a guy with no operator experience, get them in a skid steer and roller, and really teach them how to not so much how to operate, because you have to do it. You have to do it. But not so much teach them how to pull the levers and what to do, but how's this supposed to finish? What are the details? What is this material supposed to look like mixed in its moisture content? And that process has been incredible, because as they learn that machine and move into a different machine, their pay increases. And so we've had a few guys now work through this system, and I mean, our finished blade operator is 21 years old. And granted, we're using GPS. We have to. I mean, that's our advantage with this, is we don't have a 30-year blade man on our team, but we have these kids out of high school and college that are engaged, they're aggressive, they're hungry, and we treat treat going to work every day like we're playing sports. We're trying to we set a list, and we set a goal for the day, and we're able to take less experienced operators and put them on a track to where we're getting work done, and it's helped us. It's helped us be able to compete and not have to fight and try to steal experienced operators from other companies. So that's been our process, and it's been very, very hard. We burn a ton of cash doing it. We've had some, we've lost some guys through it, because it's not traditional. It's not the normal show up on a job and in 5 years we'll move you to another machine. It's very fast paced, and it's worked for us though.
So,
well,
go ahead.
My first thing is, we need to have you back just to talk about this whole training program and
Yes.
bringing people in, because I mean, I have so many questions on this, but I think first and foremost is really just in the hiring piece is everybody's trying to go after the unicorn, right? That 30-year guy, right? And he's just not.
Yes.
He's not moving unless you're going to pay him $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 more than he's making today, right? They're not moving for, $2 an hour more. That's not what they're going to move on. So one, in that, kudos to you in building I think the industry needs more of that. It brings in more talent, more people. You're adding to the talent pool of, San Antonio, really the community of earth movers, of operators, like that in and of itself is, a big hats off to you, man, and doing that, Joseph, because it does add to the talent pool. It's what we preach about here, and bringing people in and training for that blue collar guy to have a career, have an opportunity, and they're well on their way to making six figures, so long as they stick with it. They learn in and out, right, and then they can be able to operate any piece of equipment on that site. So I have so many questions in there that really just kudos to you, man, like in building a training program. and bringing young guys right out of high school or college onto a job site, sticking them in the lab, obviously with training and OSHA certifications and all that stuff. But
Right.
kudos to you, man.
Yeah, I was gonna echo that, man. It's really great to see guys like yourself kind of going outside the box, right? And we talk a lot about about innovation and technology on the show, and you're a great living example of that, right? If you can't compete or you don't want to compete by the industry norm, break it. Go break the model and rebuild it. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. And you're building a culture through it. You're building a team through it. And it's outside of the box, which is great to see. It attracts more people because you're doing it. So keep it up, man. That's awesome to hear.
No, I appreciate that. It's tough. It's tough, but it's the only way, because if you look at the industry as a whole, if you look at if you go on one of your jobs, your plumbers, they're in their 50s. They're your skilled trades guys, the guys that have been there, that have hung miles and miles of ductwork and all that. Who's going to replace them? It's our job as younger contractors to get the guys that weren't coming. I have an example is one of our loader operators. When we first hired him, he wanted to go to the police academy, and I said, hey, that's great. You can work here as long as you want. You're a good kid. And he came to us. And he's like, hey, I'm just gonna stay here. This is gonna be this is what I want to do.
Hell yeah.
And that's a massive win for me.
Yeah.
It's we're making an impact. We're trying to, and we're trying to get these kids that weren't coming, that we're trying to break that perception of, oh, you're going to be in a ditch. And you know what? We are in the ditch a lot. I'm in the ditch a lot still, but it's how do we show the other side of it? I mean, you hop in one of these machines now, it's got, the other day I heard, bass and rap music coming out of one of our machines. And I'm like, and, I opened the door and he's like, oh yeah, this thing has a really good system in it. It's comfortable. It's fun. And I was like, well, hey, give it hell. Let's go.
Yeah.
So, but no, we have to do something. We have to do something, because like I said, everybody's fighting over that super experienced 40-50-year-old man that's a stud on the job, that can run everything, that can lay out, that can do that. And there's not many of them left, and there's not many of them being replaced on the other end of the pond. And so we have to make them.
We should probably book your return show right now, because we could do an entire 2-hour special on just what you just said right there. And we talk about it a ton, man, but we have screwed ourselves as an industry, right? We've stopped building our farm clubs, and it is past time that we start rebuilding those back up because of everything you just said. So we can't get into it now because we'll go down a rabbit hole that we may not come out of today, but
yeah,
we're on the same page, man. 100%.
Right. And I mean, there's guys like, Witt's doing it, the guys from Moss, Turner, they're doing it, but it's like, they're doing it nationwide, and that's awesome. Like, I have huge respect for those guys. I mean, I wouldn't, they influenced me when I was starting my deal, but it's like, we got to get after it at the local level too. And if I can get, 8 guys this year and 20 guys next year and 50 the following, and we can start training and building up. And you know what, I'd love if a couple guys from us got poached, at least to another company. At least we're adding to the labor pool.
Yeah,
we're adding to the labor pool, and that, at the end of the day, that's the win, and that's the value that we need.
It's all about the skill, man. You can't take skills away. So
right.
The more we can add them, the better. Because we are up on time, and again, we'd love to have you back to talk more about training and this whole developing blue collar badasses across the country. But Joseph, any final words for our listeners today?
Guys, I appreciate you having me. It's been fun. I love connecting with people around the country, kind of seeing the same things that we see. Um, Really, if anything, to the viewers, it's we got to get engaged. We got to have a plan. We got to execute at a high level, and get out there and just kick some ass on these jobs. That's it.
Well, you're right on, man. And I appreciate you coming on. It was a fun conversation. Joseph, where can people find you?
Social media, Villarreal Civil Group, LinkedIn, Joseph Villarreal there. I try not to spend a ton of time on social media, as we all do, and fight that struggle. But occasionally, try to get on there as much as I can.
Well, post more pictures of your big equipment, because that's a definite crowd pleaser.
We'll do it.
All right, man.
I appreciate it, guys.
Awesome. Joseph, thanks so much for coming on. Topics we covered today and the communication between GC sub, having that communication, thinking holistically on a project, training up the next generation, and really just adding skills to the labor pool. Obviously, we have a lot more to talk about there, but keep at it, man. You're doing great work, and we appreciate having you on. Thank you so much for taking the time. And guys, that's going to be this episode of the Construction Corner podcast. Until next time.